Thank you, Mr. Speaker. 3 years ago, the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade, ripping away a constitutional right that generations of women had relied upon for nearly half a century. In that moment, the court did not just revoke legal precedent, they set in motion a wave of chaos, cruelty, and control. What followed was a full-scale assault on reproductive health care, abortion, contraception, IVF, and even access to emergency care. And in Ohio, we felt the effects immediately. Just hours after the Dobbs decision was handed down, an extreme and deeply unpopular 6-week abortion ban went into effect, essentially outlawing abortion for many people before they even knew they were pregnant. The law put the lives of millions of women in danger overnight. It forced healthcare providers to choose between following their sworn oath to care for patients or facing criminal charges. It caused trauma and suffering that cannot be undone. In fact, Mr. Speaker, a 10-year-old rape victim was denied the care she needed and was forced to flee the state to get the care that saved her life and her future.
Welcome back to America First, Patriots. I'm your host, and today we're diving into a speech that perfectly encapsulates the radical left's war on our constitutional republic. If you believe in defending our founding principles and the sanctity of life, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe for more content that puts America first. Today I watched a congressional speech from an Ohio representative that frankly left me deeply concerned about the direction our country is heading. This legislator stood on the House floor and essentially argued that the will of voters should override constitutional protections for the most vulnerable among us, our unborn children.
And yet, despite all of this, the people of Ohio did what we have always done in the face of injustice. We fought back. In November 2023, Ohioans from across the political spectrum came together to vote to enshrine reproductive freedom directly into our state's constitution. The ability to bear a child, to use contraception, and to access abortion care. It was a powerful, hopeful moment. But Mr. Speaker, our work is far from over. Because within days of that historic vote, Republican lawmakers in Ohio announced they would do everything in our power to prevent our laws from being removed. That's right. Just days after the people spoke loudly and clearly, some legislators pledged to ignore the will of the voters, and now they're following through. Just last week, members of the Ohio State House introduced one of the most extreme anti-choice bills in the country. This dangerous bill would ban nearly all abortions in Ohio, criminalize doctors, and potentially treat patients seeking care as criminals. Let me be crystal clear. Under this proposal, abortion could be prosecuted as homicide. There would be no meaningful exceptions, not for rape and not for incest. One of the bill's lead supporters, an anti-woman activist, was asked whether he worried this would overturn the will of the voters, the constitutional amendment the people of Ohio passed a couple years ago. He said he wasn't concerned. He said, and I quote, "The will of the voters was evil." The will of the voters was evil. Mr. Speaker, I don't think I've heard anything less American. The will of the voters is the bedrock of our democracy, and just as these extremists want to take away the decision-making capabilities of women, they have not stopped there. They want to take away the decision-making capability of all Ohioans. That's the ideology we're up against. One where the voice of the people isn't just disregarded, it's condemned. One where bodily autonomy is labeled evil. One where political extremists will stop at nothing, not even the state constitution, to impose their beliefs on the rest of us. It is chilling and it is dangerous. And this uncertainty is not just an Ohio problem. The United States Supreme Court recent decision in Moyle v. United States dismissed an opportunity to affirm that emergency abortion care is protected under federal law. Instead, they punted, refusing to give clarity and refusing to give peace of mind to women and doctors across the country. That's why I introduced a resolution to reaffirm access to emergency care and abortion care to all Americans. That's why House Democrats have introduced bills to guarantee abortion rights across the country and protect access to birth control, IVF, and other fertility care. Because at the heart of this fight is something bigger than politics. It's about freedom. The freedom to control our own bodies, the freedom to decide when, if, and how we grow our families, the freedom to choose our own futures on our own terms. We are the best people to make those decisions for ourselves. Mr. Speaker, there are a lot of brilliant minds here in this legislative chamber and in state houses and in courts all across the country, but women do not need them to be in our most intimate decision-making rooms and moments. As a representative of Ohio's 13th Congressional District, I will keep standing up for our freedom. I will keep working to ensure our laws reflect our values, and we must trust women. We must protect our rights, and we must never forget that democracy only works. It only works if we honor the will of the people. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield back.
Let me be clear about what really happened in Ohio. In 2023, millions of dollars poured in from out-of-state abortion activists to fund a deceptive ballot campaign. They used carefully crafted language to confuse voters about what they were actually voting for. The amendment wasn't just about abortion. It was written so broadly that it could potentially allow minors to undergo irreversible medical procedures without parental consent. The representative mentioned a tragic case involving a 10-year-old victim. And let me be absolutely clear, every single one of us grieves for that child. But we cannot allow extreme cases to drive policy that affects millions of lives. The vast majority of abortions are not performed in cases of rape, incest, or to save the mother's life. We're talking about ending the lives of innocent children who simply haven't been born yet. What troubles me most is this representative's fundamental misunderstanding of our constitutional system. When she talked about honoring the will of the people, she's ignoring a basic principle that our founders understood. Democracy is not mob rule. We have a constitutional republic specifically because pure democracy can lead to the tyranny of the majority, the rights of the minority, including the most vulnerable minority of all, the unborn, must be protected even when it's unpopular. The Ohio legislature isn't ignoring voters. They're doing exactly what they were elected to do, which is to uphold the Constitution and protect life. When voters pass amendments that potentially violate fundamental rights, it's the duty of elected officials to ensure those amendments are implemented in a way that respects all constitutional protections. This representative also completely mischaracterizes what pro-life legislation actually does. She claims that doctors will be criminalized for providing care, but that's simply not true. Pro-life laws include clear medical emergency exceptions. What they don't allow is the ending of innocent human life for convenience or economic reasons. The real extremism here isn't coming from pro-life legislators. It's coming from those who support abortion up until birth, who want to eliminate parental consent laws, and who believe that taxpayers should be forced to fund abortions against their moral convictions. That's the true radical position. When this representative talks about freedom, she's only talking about the freedom of one person while completely ignoring the freedom and rights of another human being, the child in the womb. True freedom requires responsibility and the recognition that our choices affect others, especially those who cannot speak for themselves. The most disturbing aspect of this speech is how it frames the protection of innocent life as somehow un-American. Patriots, defending the defenseless is the most American thing we can do. Our Declaration of Independence specifically mentions life as the first unalienable right. How can we claim to be a nation that values life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, while systematically ending the lives of our most vulnerable citizens? What we're witnessing isn't just a debate about abortion policy. It's a fundamental battle over whether we believe in objective truth and moral absolutes, or whether we've descended into complete moral relativism, where anything goes as long as enough people vote for it. The Ohio situation perfectly illustrates why we need strong constitutional protections and why we cannot allow activist judges or temporary majorities to undermine the fundamental principles our nation was built upon. Life is not a political issue. It's a human rights issue. As patriots, we must continue to stand firm in our conviction that every human life has value, from conception to natural death. We must support legislators who have the courage to defend these principles even when it's politically difficult. And we must never allow emotional appeals in tragic cases to cloud our judgment about basic moral truths. The future of our republic depends on whether we'll continue to be a nation that protects the innocent or whether we'll become a nation that sacrifices our most vulnerable for political convenience. That choice is before us right now, and every single one of us has a role to play in ensuring we choose correctly. That's why channels like America First exist, to cut through the mainstream media propaganda and give you the truth that puts American values first. If this content resonates with you, make sure you're subscribed and share this video with other patriots who need to hear this message. Together, we can ensure that America remains a beacon of hope for the world and a nation that truly values every human life.